want to preface this video by saying that it is not a call to go harass people because of differing opinions, however extreme and damaging they may be, but I want still to make it in a pretty abrasive tone to emphasize basically the way that the people of this era and that today, still influenced by those writings, perceive men as a whole. Not as individual, but as a whole, as a group, with collective responsibility to justify their hurtful rhetoric. Now, on to the video. This is Emmeline Pankhurst. She's one of the major actors of the creation of the White Feather Order during World War I and one of the biggest reasons for the death of men during that time period at home. If you did not know, the Order of the White Feather is an order that appeared during World War I and was basically composed of women, mostly feminists of course, that were basically marching in the streets, shaming men that did not participate in the war effort by putting on a white feather onto them. The link between that and Emmeline Pankhurst is that she was a founding member of the women's suffragette movement, and basically, under her leadership, the group was basically tasked by the state to also motivate people that did stay at home, that did not go to war, rather, and did not join men to die on the front. So to be clear, the British suffragettes at the time were basically pushing men to go die on the front by shaming them publicly, and that effort was led by Emmeline Pankhurst. In fact, you can directly say that as soon as war broke out, the focus of the suffragettes, that which had been founded by Pankhurst, shifted from women's votes to actually supporting the pro-war efforts. In 1915, Pankhurst led a procession through London with 30,000 women to encourage, quote-unquote, men to go to war. You know what this procession was called? Women's Right to Serve. Unironically, women's right to serve was asserted by sending men to die in their stead. Of course, that makes perfect sense. And it was, of course, made up by women of the White Feather Order and suffragettes. It went as far as having women serving as suffragettes appearing in public meetings with signs saying "intern them all," which is basically a saying sponsored by the government to encourage quote-unquote men to go in war and not see their family, lovers, even children. The one thing to keep in mind from all this is that the same women that were the suffragettes advocating for women's right to vote were also the one part of the White Feather Order putting white feathers onto men. They were the exact same people, aka feminists. This is Valerie Solanas, a very radical feminist author and the author of the Scum Manifesto, which is short for Society Killing Off Men, which, if you couldn't tell by the title, is a book that straight up advocates for the extinction of men as a whole all over across the world. Additionally, as a person, Solanas is a woman who is basically charged with attempted murder on multiple occasions and for causing the death of a man indirectly. And after being imprisoned for about 3 years, she is released, but immediately imprisoned again after aggravated assault. To give you an idea of what kind of person she was and what ideas she held, here is one of her quotes from her manifesto. The male is a biological accident. The Y gene is an incomplete X gene, you dig? The male is an incomplete female, a walking abortion. Straight from the Scum Manifesto. Now you would think that with a book full of quotes like this that make it end up sounding like the Mustache Man's biography, there will be a push to get it banned from actual media platforms and not push it further into feminist circles, right? Well, not at all actually. The movie producer, Nick Cave, or rather the author pluridisciplinary, inspired himself from the manifesto to create one of his characters. And to use his own word, there was an aspect of that I felt rang true. So he basically felt that there was a good point to the description of men from Solanas. Another artist group that Solanas has impacted is the Royal Schrockers Manic Street Preachers, which he has inspired quite a couple songs of, such as the Holy Bible and Walking Abortion. So to be clear, even being a work that is adjacent in its rhetoric to that of the Mustache Man's autobiography is not enough to be considered extremist, radical, and even dangerous when it comes to its ideology spreading. To give you an even better understanding of what discrimination against men can look like at the governmental level, here is basically the stats from the United Nations, which shows you the number of women that have been displaced due to the war in their home, which is a lot, a great number, I won't deny it, but it still does not compare to having to flee your home because you're forced to be conscripted into a war, which is the case for every single Ukrainian man. They are forced to stay in their country because the government itself has issued a mandate forbidding them to leave. They have a moral obligation, or whatever it is called now, to be fighting for their country and die for it. It has reached a point that even attending a wedding that can be happening because your friend, your a family member is getting married, can have you taken, kidnapped by a conscription squad. It has reached this point in Ukraine. And that's without even mentioning the fact that Russia itself, in addition to the Ukrainian government, is recruiting prisoners of war who have nothing to do with the war whatsoever to serve in the army and fight against their own brothers, their own family. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to show you this video to help you understand how men still today are facing discrimination and are suffering actual physical consequences due to misandry. Anyway, subscribe.